Tullamore Galea, Iha Omosh, and Dan Cleary, Ceoltoiri on Comhaltas Ceoltoiri Éireann. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and you're all very, very welcome to this evening of tribute to Dan Cleary, we'll say. That's a tribute night. So Dan was a great, he was, what would you call him, a legend in his own way. He did a lot of great stuff for Comhaltas and for music. He was a played music, he taught music, he composed music. And back in 1951, he formed the Comhaltas Ceoltoiri Éireann, where she was at the beginning of that. And then in 52, he formed the branch, our first branch out in Rahan. And we have some members of the Rahan Comhaltas branch here on the stage tonight, and we're going to start the show tonight. But back in that time, when Dan was playing with the Cleary band, every time they played, probably before the start and when they finished, they play their signature tune or anthem was A Nation Once Again. So we're going to start with A Nation Once Again here, just to get everybody into the mood, to set the scene for the night. Okay. I should have practiced a bit before we did that. Okay, lovely. We're going to continue with a selection of jigs here now. So see how that goes. Off you go. very good, very good. Now we're going to ask Sean here to sing a song. So I'll pull down the mic to Sean here.
An old Irish ballad is called My Own Dear Native Land. There's a beautiful isle in the Western Ocean. It's an island so lovely, so pretty and grand. Its name fills its sons and its daughters with sadness. When it's heard on the shores of a far distant land, it's Ireland, God bless her, the birthplace of heroes, the home of the poet, the warrior and saint, the bard and the chieftain no longer may cheer her, never to return from history's page. Sure, I love every blade of green grass on your mountain, every leaf on your tree, and every rock on your strand. I love the dear shamrock and clear crystal fountain, and I love you forever, my own native land. You once were a proud and a glorious nation. Your scholars and scribes were renowned far and wide. When sadness came o'er it, brought sad transformation. Our families starved and their homes were destroyed. They hired our children to break their great power, tried hard to quell them those long years ago. But the Irish they found were like soft leafy flowers. For the more that you pluck them, the faster they grow. Should I love every blade of green grass on your mountain, every leaf on your tree, and every rock on your strand, and I love the dear shamrock and clear crystal fountain, and I love you forever, my own native land. Yes, I love you forever, my own native land.
Well done, Shawnee. Beautiful, beautiful as always. Now, Shawnee he was an original member of Comhaltas, and he was a member of the Cleary band, and he's still faithful to Comhaltas, but we'll be talking to Shawnee again later on. So, we're going to go ahead now with the two newer members of Comhaltas here, the two Leahs, I call them, and they're going to play the Song of the Chanter, and we're going to go into a slip jig after that. Okay. You ready, girls? Dixon, is Dixon going to sing a song? You're going to sing a song, Dixon? Okay. Whatever. Introduce it yourself there, Dixon. I don't know what you're going to sing. Whatever.
I'm going to sing Raglan Road. On Raglan Road of an autumn day, I saw her first and new.
Well done, excellent. Okay, we're coming to the end of our stint now, so there's lots of other people and people that need to tell you how good Dan Cleary was, which he was, and all that. So we're going to finish up. We're going to finish up with two readings here now. So, okay. We're getting down now. Shawnee Kennedy, can you up to the stage first while we're getting down? Good man. On okay.
Yeah, it seems like only a year ago, but it's almost 70 years since I first met Dan Cleary. I was in Good Buddies jukebox in Clara. And the Good Buddies, two brothers and their uncle were the only people in the area who had cars. And the mechanic that looked after the cars was the late Jack Colgan. And when he retired, the Good Buddies had no one to service their cars. So, being good friends with Jack Thomas, I had a chat with Jack. And out of the blue, Dan Cleary arrived in Good Buddies to look after the cars. Now, when he was in Ballycowan, he could walk to work or cycle. But to come to Clara, he had to buy a motorbike, and he bought a BSA. And then the winters were a bit cold, and he eventually bought an Austin A40, an old one. And when tea break had come in the factory, I was in the same area as Dan was in the garage there. I used to go into the garage stove to have a cup of tea at 10 o'clock in the morning. And that's how I got to know Dan Cleary. He brought me out in the car one morning and says, "Come here till I show you." He opened the boot, and there was a fiddle in the boot. He took out the fiddle and he brought it into the workshop. We had 2 quick cups of tea, He played a tune and I sang a song along with him. And we were good friends ever since then. May the sod rest lightly on you, Dan. And may the good God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you for being my friend.
Thanks, Sean. Now, I'm holding on to Sean here for a minute here. I'm going to get him to sing a song. I'm going to introduce a man, the Hall of Fame man, and this is Derry Doody is the man's name. He's from Cork. He himself and his wife Eileen started the Hall of Fame 20 years ago, and they have a lot of great names in the Hall of Fame. But their signature tune, no more than ours was, more than Dan Cleary's was the nation once again, the Isle of Innisfree. So I'm going to ask, in the memory of Eileen Doody and in honour of Derry, I'm going to ask Sean here to sing the Isle of Innisfree, if that's all right.
Thanks very much, John. This song was made very famous by Maureen O'Hara in The Quiet Man with John Wayne. Do you remember that? And Bing Crosby, of course, was a master at singing it as well. I've met some folks who say that I'm a dreamer. I've no doubt there's truth in what they say. But sure nobody's bound to be a dreamer when all the things he loves are far away, and precious things are dreams unto an exile. They take him o'er the land, across the sea, especially when it happens he's an exile from that dear lovely Isle of Innisfree. And when the moonlight peeps across the rooftops of this great city, wondrous though it be, I scarcely feel its wonder or its laughter. I'm once again at home in Innisfree. Oh, dreams don't last, though dreams are not forgotten, and soon I'm back to stern reality. Although they've paved the footways here with gold dust, I still would choose my Isle of Innisfree. And though they've paved the footways here with gold dust, I still would choose my Isle of Innisfree. Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much.
So now, Derry, take the stage. Derry wants to talk to you a bit about the Hall of Fame.
Good evening, folks. I'm delighted to be here tonight in the faithful county of Offaly. You may well say, what is a Cork man doing here? Well, I'll tell you the story is like this. I was browsing Facebook and I came upon a story, it's about 12 months ago. And I only glanced at the story, I didn't read the whole story, but a couple of months later, I came across the story again and I said, "Jeepers, I better read that story again." Because in the Hall of Fame, which I was doing the Hall of Fame in the late 80s and on through the 90s. But then when digital and websites became, you had to have them, we formed a new Hall of Fame, and that was my wife and I and another gentleman that I sat in primary school with. But just, I won't make it sad too much, but the group that we founded in 2006, I'm the only one left that was 16. Now, when I say I'm the only one left, people passed away, my wife passed away, and 6 more of our group passed away in a 3-year period of time. So I retired after my wife's death in February 2004. But the point is that I took up this story again and I read it, and I was retired at this stage, and the Hall of Fame was kind of in the background, never gone, but in the background. And I read the story again, and my wife was the founder of the music section, because I would be big into GA. In fact, we were here in 2014. We were out in Banagher. I think there was 12 of us. We came up to honour the great Tony Redmond, the Tipperary goalkeeper. And we had a mighty, mighty night. We lifted the rafters of Banagher in the old hotel that was there. That was a great, great night. So my wife said to me, Jerry, I'm not going anymore with you unless you bring music into the Hall of Fame. And we would bring, the categories are music, heritage, business, and sport. Sport would be big with us, really big with us. So I looked at the story again and I read, Dan Cleary. Who the hell is Dan Cleary? So when I got to read it, and we were very, very much honouring the unheard, unsung heroes of Ireland for many, many years. So I couldn't put it away, but I still didn't know. I never heard of the Ballinamere Cleary Band. I didn't know who wrote the article because it landed in my inbox on Facebook. I didn't know who sent it to me. So I made a call to a community centre in Tullamore, don't know who or where. I said, look, by the way, I said, there's a story up on Facebook, and it's about a gentleman that was supposed to be a co-founder of Comhaltas. And there's a lady writing about her dad, and they're looking for assistance, publicity, promotion. I know that lady. So this lady rang Ursula, and I think it's appropriate now to say to put on that song I told you today about, because this man, I think you're all going to say that he's a hero. So put on that song, please. It's Bette Midler singing, "You Are My Hero." So rise up and sing along. We want to be Dan Hero, Dan Cleary, you are my hero.
It must have been cold there in my shadow.
We want recognition for Dan. That's what this is about tonight. It's a commemoration to get greater recognition of the man Dan Cleary. The tribute is great and the music is great, but the purpose of the night is the commemoration, ongoing, not just about tonight, ongoing after tonight as well. Now you have the Willie Clancy Memorial down in Clare. Why not have Dan Cleary tribute? What I've read about Dan Cleary is mesmerising. But it's up to you people out there to promote Dan Cleary. Ursula, you're down there. Down here, please. Can you just turn up the valve?
Beautiful smile that hide the pain. Do you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I can fly high.
So folks, the town of Tullamore, you have many legends in hurling and football, and there's another music legend here that I would urge you to support the Cleary family with your might and your pen and your power. And Ursula has launched a new Facebook page as well, Dan Cleary, Irish Heritage Music. There's a gentleman over there, Owen Cleary, you probably all know from the Bridge House. And I'm going to say that after 16 years with the Bridge House, he's carving out a new career for himself. And he's leaving the Bridge House in 3 weeks on, is it? So we wish him all the best. John, could you just give the mic to...
Where are we going to find the boss?
Pardon?
Where are we going to find the boss?
You want to say something to one?
Oh yes, I would like to thank Owen. Owen has done so much because I had done my sister Anna, we worked on the archives and Anna knew so much. I didn't at the time, and we worked together tirelessly. And then when Anna went back to Australia, I had to go it alone on my own, and I just kept moving and kept pushing. But I needed to get my dad's history out on Facebook, and I am not savvy, I must tell you, on the internet. So while I was going to my swimming class, I said to Owen one morning, Owen said, "What are you doing?" And I explained to him about my dad and about the history, and I said, "Can you help me out anyway on Facebook?" And he said, "Come in the morning and we'll see what we can do." And that went on for about 2 years, and Owen was so patient with me, his expertise, and he is a wizard, I might as well say, in technology. So I just want to say, without Owen putting that on Facebook, it wouldn't have landed in the inbox in Derry's office. So I want you to put your hands together, a big round of applause for Owen Manley. We are indebted to you, honestly. So thank you.
And there's another one of the Cleary family, I believe, after coming from the other side of the world tonight to be with us, and that's Anna Cleary. Is she here? Come up here, please. Now stop. Anna, thank you for being with us. Indeed, I'm sure you're very proud of your dad tonight, indeed.
Yes, thank you.
So now, Anna, you grew up with your dad home listening to the music?
We all did, 12 of us grew up.
Yeah.
We all did, 12 of us grew up.
Yeah.
And it was just music the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah. And basically playing music in the evening. He played music every evening while we were doing our studies and while my mother was praying. She'd sit with the prayer book and we would do our homework and he would do the music. And most of the nights as well, he would be out at various Comhaltas and teaching it. Plus in the evening time, we'd come back and write pieces of music, and then we would get them photocopied the next day, and we would, myself and Ursula and Bernadette would post them to the various students so that they had the music written out for them. Sometimes there'd be tapes of the pieces of music that would be taped at the level of their playing, whether it was slowly done, and then following week you might play a class for them on the. So that's what we did.
Right.
You know.
Right, okay. So, do you believe that your dad can be elevated to the same as Willie Clancy down in Clare?
I think my father was a man that didn't go for the promotion of himself. He went for the promotion of music of Ireland. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing and the main thing. So, you know, Willie Clancy or anybody else is as good as my father.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to hand you back to the real MC. That's the man himself over there, because there's nobody has a handle on this whole event more so than John Claffey. And I only met John about 5 or 6 weeks ago when I came up especially from Cork to meet John. And Ursula, she grooms him the same as she grooms other people to get involved with her dad over the years. But I suppose it's fair to say that in all the years that Ursula went out promoting her dad, left, right and centre. My God, she done Trojan work. I don't think I would have done it, but she did it. And I think tonight is the culmination of all those years of the placards and the protests and everything else. But we're going a different route now, folks. We're going an entirely different route. And I say thanks to this man here, John Daffy. So John, take it away.
Is that, have you more?
Pardon?
Have you more, or are we finished with
We're
finished with this segment?
We're not at Trump, it's not Donald Trump now.
Okay. Can I introduce more music? Can I introduce more music?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah. We talk to you in a minute, ladies.
We have a man who came especially here from Tipperary today, and he was a pupil of Dan's. So we're going to ask Michael here to come up to the stage and play a couple of tunes. Now Michael is recovering from sepsis, so he should have brought in his wheelchair, but we'll get.
This was Julie taught me, 1973, called The Mist in the Bog. It's been a while since I played, so there's a few gaps that keep with me. I get there in the end. I'm not sure.
Just want to get the list.
When I was 10 years old when I met Dan, my dad worked for Gordon over Derry Green, and we lived in Rochford Bridge at the time. My dad was a Tipperary man, and he took me over to Dan. The classes then were in Tullamore School, and the first lesson I had with him, he gave me a little green manuscript with 2 tunes written down. The Boys of Webster and the Minstrel Boy. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the tunes. So anyway, I took them home, and of course I recognised the names. I never said a word. And sure, I knew the Boys of Webster, and I worked out the Minstrel Boy to my own liking. And went back the following week, and it was back then. It was Daddy used to give me 2 shillings to give to Dan for the lesson. And I went up anyway, played the 2 tunes, and Dan looked at me. He said, "That's grand, Michael." He said, "Could you play it the way I wrote them for you?" And obviously I'd done the cowboy on it. And So that was my kind of first introduction with him. And after that, I found him to be a very kind man for a 10-year-old. And we used to, he taught me very quickly, and he taught me some great tunes. And he was a lifelong friend of mine. Anyway, I always enjoyed meeting him at Flas and that afterwards. And the class was wonderful. We had people, I remember Rose, Mary and Christy, and there was a family of Scallies, and then there was a family of Jellys. And, it was a very, it was a great time to be a child and to spend time with him as a child. So anyway, I'll play one more tune. Thank you very much. I'll play one more tune for that he taught me. I'll see how I get on anyway, but it's called One Fiddle's Real. Thank you.
And he's going to do a poem that Dan Cleary wrote. So, okay. Come on up here, Mike, here to the hot seat.
He was a great family man. I didn't know he was into poetry though. And this, I believe, is composed by Dan for compiled, October 41, compiled by Dan Cleary and Comhaltas Ceoltoiri Éireann. I don't want to fall over it. Well, I haven't, that's right. Forget it. Anyway, the poem is entitled Tullamore Harbour, but not about Tullamore past and present. And a lot of you will recognise the landmarks when I mention them. My thoughts wander back to the days of my youth, and I question by times if to convey the truth. One thing I haven't queried since or before, a love for my birthplace and hometown, Tullamore. No shortage in our county of canals, rivers and brooks, as many have enjoyed by casting their hooks in water that flows through the town of the best and continues across under the way to the west. On my way home from school, I'd stop at Whitehall, as many have enjoyed while casting their hooks in water, oh that's that one, sorry, On my way home from school, I stopped at Whitehall and gazed from the bridge at some games of handball. Barges underneath sailed in and out of docks. Others passed by to be let out through locks. I could hear the spinning angle from the streets and the square. You could be sure it was Sunday if you didn't hear it there. At the fair day on the third Friday, be 10 to your feet, to have all shoes fitted, to show off in Henry Street, you know where that is. If a procession or a mission was coming up at the time, I was sent off to Balladove for 6pence worth of lime. My mother would add water to make the batter right, and hand brush our walls until they were sparkling white. Family reunions were celebrated by an old house dance. Invitations were verbal, sent out weeks in advance. Song and dance continued all night through, begging musicians to play for another one or two. Be Daly, Irish Mist, and Tullamore Joe, if I might, worldwide respected for the liquor, I should say, for the liqueur, London Right, having carried our name to faraway posts, and are used many times while preparing a toast. Our youth with their medals we cannot ignore, bring back honours to their hometown Tullamore. Changes have happened in my years in between, all the better it appears to have been. The town has enlarged beyond all expectation in recent times more than earlier generations. We are moving with the times as well as the before. Sure, it feels very good to be at home in Tullamore last verse. I have to leave it all behind one day when the Lord shall decide to shortcut my stay. There is no place I'd hate to leave more than my birthplace and hometown, the great Tullamore.
Joe, are you ready? We're going to get Joe Finn now. Joe Finn was another star pupil of Dan's, along with Comhaltas Ceoltoiri and Sean, or Michael. We're all pupils. So Joe's going to play a bit on the pipes. He might even say a few words about Dan as well, introduce.
Okay, just delighted to be here to be asked to play a tune for Dan, remembering Dan. When I was a youngster, Dan was great encouragement, and he used to teach a class in Tubber, and we had a Cleary band there that time, and Dan oversaw everything with the band, and it was a great encouragement. And so I'm going to play a few tunes that we probably played at that time. It's back a long time ago now, so I don't have names for them, but they're fairly standard tunes in it, okay? Hey there, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Joe. Beautiful, as ever. Oh. If anyone wants to buy Joe's recording, A Piper Calls the Tune. There's a lovely CD out called A Piper Calls the Tune. Okay, now, granddaughters of Dan, they have a couple of pieces that they want to play. Is that right, Ursula? Yep. And Owen, I think, has it lined up, ready to go. So, let's have it.
The late Dan Cleary here to play for us, Anya and Aoife. Isn't that right, Gerald? Somebody picked that picture up of her. What are you going to play for? Somebody has a whistle and a flute and a concertina. Have you any more instruments here? Be very proud of your grandfather, will you? Yeah, were you proud of him as well, Anya?
Yeah.
Did he get a chance to teach you how to play, did he?
Anya.
Anya did. Oh, Chris, what are you going to play for us now?
A couple of jigs.
A couple of jigs. Will you give them a nice round of applause? Two young people here, granddaughters of the late and great Dan Cleary, one of the most respected musicians in the Midlands. So in your own time, girls, away you go.
He's right, the music of Dan Cleary is still mad alive, as they say around here. Okay, I want to talk to four good friends of Dan's about Dan, I suppose. So, John Brady, Mervyn Thomas, Johnny Waterfield, Geraldine McGarrigle. I want you all to come up here, and maybe some of you might play a tune, but I want to see what you have to say anyway.
Contact with Dan Cleary was when he worked in Ballycowan and Thomas's garage. John Thomas and my father and them used to drink it up in port together. And that was the year of the house dance, the Trashel dance and the American Wake. And Dan used to come up and play at the house dances in Cleary and Ceoltoiri and around that area there, as well as his own place. And the thing I remember with Dan was, we had our own local musicians, terrible bad musicians, with terrible bad instruments. The key gone here and the key gone there, but they would make a bit of noise anyway. But Dan would never snub them, he'd play with anyone. And two things I learned from Dan was that you play music not to be better than anybody else, but to give enjoyment and to enjoy it yourself.
That was Dan, all right, yeah. And Mervyn, you kind of knew Dan a bit as well, did you?
I knew him better than I knew my own father. The poor man, he would got up out of bed to hear Dan playing in the kitchen. And Mick Boland's and all those famous outfitters, and we'd go up to listen. It was super, and he gave us a love for the music that could never be beaten. Now, he worked in the garage, and he was a fantastic mechanic. He was excellent in every way. But the poor devil, he tried every possible aspect to promote music. And in our time, he was a god. Now, for me, it was the same to me as my father. I loved him dearly, and he was very good to me, and I can never forget. No, God bless you.
And that's Mervyn Thomas, son of the famous Jack Thomas, that was good, that Dan used to work for. Now, Geraldine McGarry, she was Geraldine Daly back in them days.
My memories of Dan go back. I'm older than I look. Dan to me was a terrific teacher. But there's a few things he used to say that always stuck in my mind, and one of them was that no point to learn it if you weren't going to pass it on. It was one thing he used to say. And when you'd be playing music in a session around, if you were twitching or fiddling, he'd be always saying to you, stay quiet now and listen. Because no matter how good or how bad you think a musician is, there's always something you can learn from them. Because they'll have a note or a twist, do you remember him saying that, like that you don't have and you want to learn it? That's what he'd say. And I remember my dad telling me how he brought Dan out to Ballinagare to start that very first branch of Comhaltas. And I remember my father talking about it all the time, his dad was involved in a band called St. Mary's, and at the time, and the last surviving member of that's my Aunt Pat, and she was on the Flacchio last Sunday, 91 years of age. But I think the most important legacy, you're talking about the legacy Dan has left. Dan taught so many of us, and I played with Joe and that over the years, but what he taught us, it was our duty to teach to the next generation. And I know from my own point of view, I have 3 kids. All 3 play, sing and dance, and they've done it all over the world. And they're married musicians. And next Sunday, the next generation, my grandchildren are competing in their very first Flacchio. And Dan Cleary, in a good part, is responsible for that. Because what he taught me, what he taught us, we handed on. And now I see my own kids handing on. So it's not just what the music and all Dan left behind, it's what he's given. And they're still given years afterwards. So.
Well said, Jeremy. It's easy to get emotional when you start talking about Dan Cleary. Now, John Brady here had a special relationship with Dan for a long time.
Thanks, John. Yeah. When I was a child, we always knew Dan Cleary was a legend. To our house, we were fortunate that we had some serious musicians come out to play. As a 9 or 10-year-old, sometimes we took it for granted, but as we got a little bit older, we started to realise that Dan Cleary, Sean Ryan, just off the top of my head, and several other people that came, they were special. There's no doubt about that. And as Geraldine's pointed out there, that is the most important thing, to pass that music on. I'm just fortunate that I've actually learned many tunes from Dan Cleary and my own father. I'll just give you one other small little thing that struck me when I was sitting down there, is that behind every great man there's a great woman. And I can't pretend to say that I knew Maureen Cleary very well, but But I will tell you a small little childish story that I'll just never forget. They say that if you're going home from a match, if you buy the young fella an ice cream, you'll never forget that day. And I'll never forget one Sunday evening going across to Dan Cleary's house with my own father. Simple little story, but it sticks in the back of my mind. Chatting and talking in the kitchen, and there were buns on the table. But we had tea, and eventually when the chat was over between Dan and my father, it was time to go home. And whatever way I stood up, remember I was 9 or 10 now, I stood up and I kind of glanced at the buns. Time to go, but I glanced at the buns. And Maureen Cleary was cocked it. And as I was leaving, she took up a bun and put it in my pocket. I just never forgot that. Simple little story. Her kindness to a child who had to sit and listen to the two men talking about music for an hour and a half. Anyway, I just tell that little story in fairness to Maureen. My father actually wrote a tune in Dan's honour years and years back called Dan Cleary's Ireland. And I'm going to make an attempt to play that tune now.
Well done, John.
Yeah. He also wrote the tune, the Trip to Doro, but I have instructions not to play that one just now. That's for later.
We'll keep that for the finale.
Yeah, the very last little small thing I will say, in terms of heroes and legendary status, I always knew as a child growing up that Dan Cleary was a special musician. He really was an incredible musician, and it's a privilege to be here to just even to say his name. Thank you. Anyway, this is Dan Cleary's Ireland.
So now you see the sort of friends that Dan had. They all love him, and they still love him after he's dead for so many years. Isn't that right, Michael? That's right, yeah. Now, Paddy O'Brien, the great Paddy O'Brien, one of the members of the Ballinamere Caden band. He's living in America now. He couldn't get to come over. But he wrote a poem about Dan, so we're going to get Ursula back on stage again to read Paddy O'Brien's poem.
Paddy used to visit, number one, he played with the Ballinamere Caden band. He was an All-Ireland champion accordion player. But when he visited Dan, it was in December, and this is when he left Dan's house. This is what he got from his visit with Dan. So it's called Dan Cleary, and it's called Alone in the Kitchen, the fire is dwindling. His eyes closed, he listened to vibrant strings, soulful and pure. His bow on a merry spree, in hunting secret notes, into the open. It straddles the strings, then backs away again rapidly. Dan is smiling a shade of a smile. He is at peace with himself and his music. It is a happy time of his, before sleep caresses and blankets, the jolly time within him. Outside, the night is still.
His home is silhouette, a yellow kitchen light peeps outwards its warm glow, making its lone statement of life in the night. His music continues to speak the language of jigs and reels, giving assurance to the soul of the wanderer, a serenade for stillness and eternal distance under a starlight moon on an icy month in December. That's Paddy O'Brien. I just have two more wishes from two other people. Got a lovely message from a tractor lady as well, and she sends her best wishes for tonight, for a great evening. Sorry she couldn't be there, and she just said Dan was a great musician. Okay. And the last one is from Frank and Mary Brennan, and this is what Frank says, and Mary. We both owe so much to Dan, me for the encouragement and support to get me in mode as I resumed playing, and Mary from the time she attended his music classes as a child in Kilmurray Hall. His induction into the Hall of Fame is much deserved and overdue for many years. His leadership of the Ballymere K Band made it a household name with Mary's father Peter and many other members playing in the band for many years. Hope you have a great night in honouring your father Dan, a much deserved occasion for an inspiring man who left a great legacy and memories. Regards, Frank and Mary Brennan.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we had Joe Finn playing, we had Michael Cooney playing, and Camillus Heine is really annoyed that he couldn't be here tonight. Really annoyed that he couldn't be here tonight. He's playing with the Furies. So, can we do, we have a little video of the Camillus.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Ursula Cleary and John Gaffney for inviting me to come and talk and just play a couple of tunes to remember Dan Cleary. My father, Jim Heine, and myself used to go to his kitchen and we'd play tunes in the kitchen, and I learned a lot from Dan Cleary. I learned a lot of great tunes from him. I remember he ran a music class, an advanced music class in Clara Vocational School. I was just telling John about this. And at that class then was people like Dave Sheridan on the fiddle, Anne Farrell, Rose Bradley, Joe Finn, the Murphys from Hursley, and myself. And we got some great tunes, and there's several great tunes, and they've stood the test of time with me. I've used them. I don't play them so much lately because there's not so many people that play them. But here we go with two reels that I learned. So here we are, and enjoy the rest of the evening, and thanks very much.
Well done. Now, that was Camillus Heine, and Camillus can't come tonight because he's playing in Stradbally with the Furies. So now we're going to have the Dailies playing a couple of tunes, and then in among that we're going to have Maureen and Ursula dancing St. Patrick's Day. So we'll get the Baileys to come up here. Maureen here, she might say, say a couple of couplets about the Patrick.
This Marie, we know Schluck, Tá míle fáilte roimh go dtí an ócáid iontóg seo, ihe anhfuil in an óir Dan Cleary agus a clá. It's Miss Maureen Culliton. I'm a blow-in. I'm from over the mountain in Leash, so you won't hold that against her, I'm sure you won't, no, don't worry. But just before, when we were assembling tonight, I spoke to a man here, Joe, and he told me that in the Cayley dancing days, when they were dancing to Dan Cleary's music, it made a huge difference in that they danced so much better when Dan Cleary was playing the music. They could relate better in terms of their steps to Dan Cleary's music. So wasn't that a lovely tribute to Dan Cleary and Joe here? Come on, give him a nice round of applause. He's here in the front. Good man, excellent. And as well as that, I was talking to a man down the back there. His name is Greg. And yes, he's given a wave down there at the back. And he told me also a little story that, now he put himself down. He said, I wasn't a very good accordion player, he said. But I'm sure he was, excellent. But when he played with Dan Cleary, he felt he did so much better. And that he gave great body and he got a very much better melodic tone when he played with Dan Cleary. So again, there's another man down there who had a great relationship with Dan Cleary. Well done, Greg. Yep. So, Greg Cusack. Okay, I forgot the surname Greg. See, I'm only a blow-in, as I said, I'm only a blow-in. So anyway, now are we ready? Okay, it's fantastic. So going back with we're going to dance, because Dan again was a great supporter of music, song and dance and the language and the culture and the whole lot. So Ursula and I are good friends and she invited me to dance. I'm a bit overdressed, but however, don't worry at all, to do the steps anyway. Okay, so,
Maureen, we'll talk to the band after. Now, isn't that something? Okay. Do you and the band, are you going to play another tune, the dailies, and the band we call them now? Rita, do you want to say something about Dan? I'm going to ask Rita here, put her on the spot now to say a few words about Dan as well. By the way, that Joe that Maureen was talking about is a brother of mine, and the Greg that she's talking about is a first cousin of mine. So we're well connected. And by the way, when you're talking about that, just before I let Rita give Rita the mic, you know, Joe will remember, my father and mother always talked about it, that Dan's very first paid gig was playing at our mother and father's wedding. He was only 14 at the time, but he provided the music for their wedding. So Dan Cleary was a very special person in our household all down through the years. The only time we'd be allowed to stay up late was a Sunday night to listen to Cayley House, especially if the Ballinamere Cayley band were on. Okay, Rita.
Well, the Clearys were neighbours of mine because I live in Ballycown, and they were in Ballinamere. But my memories of music with Dan Cleary was in the Long Range Cayley Band. In 1982, we won the All-Ireland along with Liam and Cartashire in Listowel, and Dan was the fiddle player. But the best memories was going to the practices, and especially in Alice Buck's house in Clontarf Road. To me, Dan was a quiet man, but he loved the wit and humour of Alice, and then the tea break. And then my other memories of him were going to the Cayleys in Monkstown in Dublin. And after we won the Long Ridge, we got to play in a lot of Cayleys up there, and myself and Claire used to travel with Dan. And one night, it wasn't funny, but one night we were coming home, and we're just after leaving Montstradin and on the way into Portarlington. We were asleep in the back of the car. Next thing, we ended up in a field. But Dan turned around and laughed. Girls, it's okay. We'll just turn around and go on. But I must say, Dan was a tremendous musician, and I'll always cherish my years playing music with him. Thank you.
How about that? That's fantastic, fantastic. Great musicians and great dancers. And well done, Breda, for your story. Dodie, Derry here wants to say something, I think, about, he said he wanted to say something.
Am I on again, Tom? Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, you put up notes for a few minutes again. We get back to the origin of this night. And I suppose that goes back to Ursula. And it's gone back a year, actually. And then, as I said in my last few words before I sat down for myself, John came on the scene. And of course, John had a massive knowledge of Dan. And I'm delighted that John has taken the floor. As we said before, back in the 50s, I remember my mother and the great Dinjo, the programme Take the Floor. And this man took the floor tonight, Din himself. He has a great knowledge of Dan. How did you get to know Dan?
Oh,
I know I played at your parents' wedding, but you probably weren't at that wedding either.
Dan was a household name in our house for all of us, forever, you know, since when I was, from as long as I can remember. But see, Dan started the Ballinamere Ceoltoiri Band in 1947.
Yeah.
And he decided, he was telling me this himself, that he decided that after, when he formed the Ceoltoiri Band, he thought it would be nice to have pipes in the band. So he went and got lessons from Leo Rowsome, the great Leo Rowsome in Dublin.
Yeah, sure.
And he used to go up of a Saturday night, and he'd stay the night, and he'd have these music lesson on a Sunday, and he'd come back down again, and that's the way it
He'd
went
have
on.
to pay for that.
He'd have to pay for all that, yeah. The music lessons were expensive at the time too. But anyway,
a pound a lesson, I think, weren't it?
I can't remember.
Pound a lesson, yeah. A lot of money then, yeah.
Leo introduced him to the Pipers Club in Dublin.
Thomas Street.
In Thomas Street, yeah. And he became a member of the Pipers Club. But Dan thought it was a pity that they have such a fine club and no instruments in it except pipes. So he suggested that maybe they should let other instruments into the Pipers Club.
Okay.
But that went on for probably 6 months or a long time. And they decided, no, that they wouldn't let more instruments. There's a Pipers Club, it's a Pipers Club. But they said the best thing to do was to start another organisation for other instruments. And so they started what became Comhaltas. And in 1951, they had their inaugural meeting in Mullingar. I think it was Comhaltas Ceoltoiri Éireann at the time.
Ceoltoiri Éireann, yeah.
And they elected, we have a man here with us tonight, a son of the first, the first chairperson that Dan helped to elect actually in Mullingar at that first meeting. Kieran Moynihan. I know well he won't remember that. He probably wasn't born at the time, but however, it's nice to have him here, and you're very welcome here.
Very welcome.
I was asking him if he might say a few words. Now, I used to be very friendly with his brother, two brothers actually, Aidan and Coleman. Now, Coleman has Parkinson's and he's not well at all, but poor Aidan actually died. I'm very sorry to hear that. I'm sorry about that. But that's where my experience of Dan and all the things that happened and down through the years, you know, he was playing, as we were just saying there earlier, probably 4 or 5 nights a week in Ceoltoi's. He was probably the best Ceoltoiri band in the country at the time. And they were playing, people had a habit, there was a lot of new dance halls being built at that time. And every new dance hall that was built, they wanted the Ballinamere Ceoltoiri Band to open the hall. So he was opening halls from Ballyconneely down to West Cork up to Dublin. And as well as that, he was playing in Ceoltoiri House roughly once a month for about 12 or 14 years non-stop. And he was telling me that for all that time that he played in Ceoltoiri House, that they never repeated a tune. That he wrote new tunes and got them to play new tunes, and he had all the tunes recorded. It's a big achievement, an awful lot of time and an awful lot of music that was never repeated over 12 or 14 years. But in Dan's probably most, how would you say, brilliance came out in 1957 in the, what flower was that? Monaghan, no, it was not before Monaghan, wasn't it? But anyway, Glungarvan, yes.
Oh yeah, 10 hour Ireland, isn't it?
That's right.
10 hour
They won, between Dan himself and the band, the members of the band, they brought back 10 All-Irelands to Offaly. But I don't think it was ever repeated since. Come up here, Anna, and tell it yourself. You remember it.
1957.
Yeah, 1957, yeah.
1957 was a very important year because, along with the fact that it was meant to be revived, but also the harp. It took 6 years between 1951 to 1957 for the first harp person to have a competition because they didn't have enough harpists. But that year, my father won the All-Ireland the third time in a row on the Uilleann pipes. And then it was Tom Nolan, his student, won the junior. And had he played, my father wanted him to go and play in the intermediate because Paddy Maloney was there. Had he had gone, he might have even beaten Paddy Maloney that year. But there was 11 medals. There was duos won, there was trios won in the band. There was the accordion player, Ursula, the accordion player at the time. Mick Mullins, he won and they won 11 medals they came back with. But it was an important year.
I don't think that was done. I don't think that was done since. Give Dan a big round of applause for that.
But I just want to say actually that back in the day when the Baltimore Cleary band were on the go, and you had the Gallagher Glass and you had the Kilfenora, and you had all those bands. Now for the younger people here tonight, the older generation like myself and the rest, some of the people on sticks and crutches, but the GAA, for all that we know, they had a band that was only removed in 1971. And the great legend Mick O'Connell of Kerry, he attended a soccer match in Cork. I was there myself in 1969. And there was a photograph taken of Mick in the crowd. There was 20,000 people in the crowd, but Mick was photographed. And Mick was suspended. And there was another situation up in Thurles where Mick O'Dwyer, he got a month. And the rule was the GAA didn't allow their clubs all over the 32 counties to hire what they called marketing bands. You had to be a KV band. And that pertained up to 1971. So KV bands were the only bands that were permitted to play fundraising for the GAA. Now I met a gentleman in Cork we have a club in Cork called the Cork Accordion Club. It was founded by the great Donald Ring and his son, and I'm honouring them on the 19th of June. But a man came up to me and he said to me, "Do you know, Jerry," he said, "the GAA," he said, "they rule the roost so much," he said, "that the vast majority of KV bands, they actually build pitches, they build stadiums for the clubs." And I don't know if there are any GAA people from Tullamore here tonight, and it isn't for the want of me emailing Michael Diamond and many others. I don't know they're here tonight or not, but I think it's a terrible situation that people like Dan Cleary give their whole services. I saw a statement written, O'Connell Park owes a great debt to Dan Cleary and other parks around the country. These people, and also pointed out to me, Dan Cleary played in Bandon, not Bandon, Ballincollig, Boherwee, Kerry. My God, and travelled back to Tullamore after a gig. And you were taken away with the stories about repairing vans and the Volkswagen bus. There was no heaters probably in those buses. But there was a great story that John will tell you now.
Well, it happened. I think that Dan will tell that story. I think Dan is going to tell that story himself later on. But come here, you mentioned there about Paddy Maloney.
Yes.
A priest in Clara told me that Paddy Maloney told him that Dan was one of the best Uilleann pipe players in the country at the time. So that's some prayers from Paddy Maloney, and that was only recently before he died.
Paddy Maloney worked in a little shop off Cahill Street in Dublin. It was a musical shop. And he used to go there to get all his instruments for his students or test out new ones because he liked a particular accordion and he liked a particular fiddle. Anything new came in, the guy would let him know. But Paddy Maloney worked there. And he used to actually ask Daddy for advice, and Daddy would give him advice on the Uilleann pipes. And
yeah, that's true. I mean, Dan told me that story himself. Well, you mentioned there as well about he learned his music from Leo Rawson, and his son Leon was actually in the Ballinamere Kelly band for a while. But his grandson, Kevin Rowson, he wanted to be here tonight, but he couldn't make it, so he gave us a little video, so we might get Owen to play the video. Thanks for that, Anna. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Right. Thank you. Actually, just to say that, don't forget Ursula's new page, John, the Facebook Heritage page. Yeah, because there's a gathering here tonight, but there's a huge gathering of Facebook people.
On hosting this event for Dan, not before time, and I hope it goes very well. I'm sorry I'm not able to attend tonight, but I'm going to play a tune that my grandfather was one of my grandfather's favourite airs on Coolin, and I'll follow it by Home Back to Wexford Hornpipe.
We're starting with a couple of little old tunes, a couple of harpipes. One is the Cork harpipe. The next one is a tune that Aisling got to work to. She wasn't very fond of it. It's called the Trumpeter Harpipe. And I got that from an old band that the band we were probably playing against called the Jackie Hirsch Kelly Band from outside Derry. So, hope you enjoy it. I might run into another read after. Thank you.
Have you any words of wisdom about Dan?
Remember one night we were below at in Clachan Hall back about 1971 or 72, and myself, Seamus Egan and Eilish Egan were after getting second in the All-Ireland under 14 in Listowel, and Dan came in to congratulate us and listened to the tune we played and told us, if you had to play this tune, you'd have already got first, he says. That was that. Always great encouragement, and would just a lovely man to sit down and have a tune with. And I was so privileged to have been able to do that with him. And I thought over him. And I also thought I liked his family as well. So we've both met a lot of years. So That's all I can say. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thanks very much. Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much for that. Now look, there's 4 members of the Ceilidh band, of the Ballinamere Ceilidh band, I understand, here tonight. So if the 4 members will come up, there's Sean Convey, Joe Bryan, Shawnee Monaghan, and Anne Kilroe. Anne Kilroe there somewhere. These are original members of Rahan Comhaltas, and also, well, Shawnee of course is too young to be part of the original Rahan Comhaltas, but the rest, these two guys, it's a reunion for them as well. Yeah. Now, is Anne Kilroe there? No. Anne Kilroe, I think I wanted to say a few words, but I don't know where she is now. The trouble is, I don't even know her. So, have you any stories about that? Sean was telling me some lovely stories about their exploits on the road, but he's very shy to talk about them here now.
The longest thing I can remember was, and Sean probably remembers as well, as a 19-year-old I joined the band at that time. The band was winding down at the time. It was just a year and a half away from winding down. So we left Rahan Bridge as about 2 o'clock in the day, it was St. Stephen's Day, and headed for about 25 miles the far side of Cork. That was the gig we were going to. It was pelts and frost on the same day. We travelled the whole way down to Cork in a van with no heater in it. When we got there, I don't think we were able to play with the cold. So that was my longest memory, and I sort of thought about it after that. This is what the band had been doing for years before that, in them circumstances. And I remember coming back to Rahan Bridge that morning at 6:30 in the morning and getting me fiver. I was away with it. But that's what the band had been doing for years before that, and they were great men. And arrive at 6:30 home from places like that and be up for work the next morning was amazing. And it just goes to show you the dedication and that they had with it. So Joe Bryan would probably remember. Joe was in the band before me, so he would remember more of it. But my first encounter with Dan Cleary was, my father worked as a carpenter in D. Williams in Tullamore. I think Dan was a mechanic in horse carriage. So when they got their summer holidays, instead of going to Torremolinos or places like that, they went to the pub to cut the turf. So Dan had a turf bank right beside my father, where my father cut. So they cut for the week, cut the turf, and then wind up with a session in our house. And I remember as maybe a 4 or 5 year old sitting on top of the stairs, listening to Dan and Joe Wire playing music at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that was my very first encounter with Dan Cleary. And then of course later on, as a 7-year-old, music classes started in Ireland. So I started off learning the accordion at that time. So that was my memories of Dan. So maybe Joe will say a few words now.
I would have played music with Dan for, I suppose, the more than 10 years. I would say at this stage, Dan was a gentleman of the highest degree and a brilliant musician. Now, it all started when I was about 13 or 14. I got an accordion, and we used to go down to the Rahan Hall. Dan, Peter Kilroe, Mick Wallen, and Sean Brennan sometimes. We'd come down every week, and we started there. So when I was about 17, I got a call from Dan where I come and join the band. And of course I was delighted at that stage. And Actually, Mick Lennon, a great friend of mine, was already there. Now, we replaced two brilliant accordion players in Mick Mullins at Clara and Mick Boland, Tullamore. And so I'd say we played all over the country. At that time, we could be out 3 and 4 nights a week. Now, the money wasn't great, but the crack was great. And we'd leave. I remember one time we went to a place called Ballykinneedy. Now, it was miles beyond Clifton, and you know where Clifton is. We went one Sunday morning, and we played there. They were all talking Irish, so we didn't know what they were saying. And anyway, we played, and we had great crack, and we started for home. And about 6 miles outside Tullamore, the half-shaft broke into the land. Now we had a girl sitting with us. She was in the front, all the boys were in the back, all right. So this was about 6 o'clock in the morning. So what were we going to do? Did we stay on the road? So we started to push the van. And we actually pushed it 6 miles into Tullamore. And then we got into a hotel. And Jack Thomas Burton's father came down and took it. But his husband, Peter DeGrow, and who else? Patsy Jess was our drummer. And a lorry came, a flat-bodied lorry. And he said, well, the 3 of us in the front, we'll go to Tullamore. And so 3 of us decided to sit on the back of the lorry. And we went the whole way to Tullamore. We sat on the back. You wouldn't do it now, we'd have to say it, we'd be arrested. You know. I just say this little thing to happen. We had a brilliant time. And I'd say I was the moment of 10 years with Dan, and we never had a word. You know, everything was good. He was a brilliant musician, you know, he could play anything. And it was such an ear for music. It was young. So, I put you over to Sean now.
All the hard work done and everything, Paul now, and my job is easy and all that. My first meeting with Dan was in the early 60s when I went to Jack Thomas's in Ballycount time. Dan was the foreman there. So he trained me to do things all day and that, and then he decided, and very good of him, and he said he'd teach me to read music and to play the double bass, because we were going to be recorded on the radio, RTE, Saturday night, Kelly House. No. So he was very good to me, and that's what he did. He had a hard job in the daytime, and then he had a hard job in the evening time. But I want to say one thing, when I went to Dan Cleary's, and Dan was there, and he looked after everybody very well. And his wife, Maureen, she must be a saint, because they put up with us, and she had tea for us, and looked after us every night we went there. And as the saying goes, behind every man, there's always a great woman. So, I want to say that. And another man I just have to mention tonight is Mick Lennon. Mick Lennon brought me to work, and brought me with the band, and collected me and brought me home, and he was another great man in my lifetime. So I want to say thanks to everybody. And Dan said to me when he was about the double bass. Now he said, one choice, we have to read the music, and I have to play the bass on the piano, and you have to play it on the double bass. And he said, no, you don't, he said. And there's any little foo-faw, he said, you just take it and leave it at the wall, this gentleman at the radio station, and you can go to the Irish Club or wherever you like. So I said, I'd rather, he'd been with Dan, and that was it. But a powerful man, a great man, and Clearys were always very good to me, and Brian Cleary, as I said, was a great one. To put up with us, make tea for us every night and all that. Now, thanks to everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, lads. That's all the stuff that we all already knew. But it's great to have it, testify for, yes. Okay, what was I going to do next? Forgotten what I was going to do next. Oh yeah, talking about Dan Cleary, there's some music that Dan played. Can you manage to get that up there on the Cleary band? Dan actually introduced us to some of this himself now, so just let Dan let Owen play it, okay?
I'll start off now with 2 reasons.
had Joe Bryan there a minute ago, and he had a lot of nice things to say about Dan, and he was quite right, quite right. But this is a daughter of Dan, of Joe Bryan, and his grandchildren here, and they're going to play a bit of a tune. Now, one of these girls, I believe, she got through in the Cleary band, did you? Yeah, we got through, and keeping up the tradition, as always. And we had James Hyland down there, another lad, hopefully he might sit in with them. Where did he go? He had his accordion. Come on, James, sit in here and play it. Fitting tribute to Dan, very fitting, very fitting. Okay. There's two more members of the Ballinamere Ceoltoiri band that couldn't be here tonight, and that's Tom Nolan and Tess Cunningham. Now we have Tom Nolan's two sons here. Just come up here for a minute and just introduce yourselves here. Tom Nolan was a like he said, he won the All-Ireland in the junior and pipes. I don't know what else he won. Won a lot of other stuff. He was a brilliant piper as well. But now, do you want to say a few words about Dan while you're here? I put them on the spot. You see, they say they're not going to say anything, but when I put them on the spot, they usually do come up with something.
I suppose, personally myself, my first introduction with Dan was about in the very early 80s when my father brought me to Dan's house to when I started playing music first. I also was taught by Dan for a number of years. I'm taught by the great John Brady as well. And I suppose, you know, my father and Dan were great friends for many years. Dan would have been a man that would have taken my father under his wings. And you know, my father was a member of the Ballinamere Ceoltoiri Éireann for a number of years, but he went in at a very young age as well. And Dan, I think he brought him to Dublin as well and introduced him to the Euros, and probably got him a number of lessons as well, and he did other things for him as well. But, and now my dad unfortunately has dementia, and he's in nursing home, so he's 88 now, but he's not doing too bad, but obviously it's dementia. So we're just here tonight to we're delighted that Dan's been inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think it's, you know, for a brilliant man, a brilliant musician. It's long overdue, but it's finally here. So my brother Pat, the set of the Euros and pipes has been handed down to him by my father, so Pat might say a few words now.
Yeah, thanks, Gerard. I noticed somebody earlier in the night said that Dan went to the Éireann for lessons after forming the band in the late 40s. I actually wasn't aware that he started playing pipes that late in life, which is, it's hard enough to learn pipes at a young age without starting in adulthood. So, but the legacy from that, and I know other people mentioned about the importance of passing it down, but I suppose our own father would have started his music in the local pipe bands just not far from here in Market Square, following the footsteps of his older brother Jim and his uncles Danny and Philip Lynham. But I suppose he would have been ambitious as a musician, and learning the other pipes would have appealed to him. And I suppose the chain of events, if Dan hadn't gone up to the Éireann to learn pipes, and I suppose become ostensibly the first piper probably in County Offaly, then the opportunity wouldn't be there for my father to learn them, and to have all the great times that he had playing music, which was the most important thing in his life really. And I suppose that's been passed down to us. There was 10 of us in the family, and we all played music whether we liked it or not. You know, and that legacy now. Like I learned bagpipes mostly, but I've made a more concerted effort at the other pipes in recent years, and I'm getting great enjoyment out of it, and hopefully I'll get to pass it on too in time. And again, that's one small slice of Dan Cleary's legacy, which is considerable.
Just one other thing I'd like to mention. When my father started to play the pipes, Dan actually bought him a set of Leo Rice and Alien pipes, and he let him pay it back for 50 pence a week. That was the payment, so we're very grateful for that. Thank you.
Have you still got the pipes? Still have them? Oh, good. You treasure them, yeah. Okay, now, as I said, the other member of the Ceoltoiri band was Tess Cunningham, and Valerie's she couldn't make it here tonight. She's living in England, and she's into her 80s, so she couldn't make it tonight. She wanted to, but she couldn't. So she sent something for her to be read out, and Valerie's going to read it out. Okay.
Hi Ursula. What I remember is I was only 16 at the time. I was working in Walter Ennis's in Clara, and I was singing at a play in Ratton Hall one night. I don't know if Dan was there, but my brother Pat was. And Dan asked Pat to ask me if I would join the band. So I agreed, and we used to practice at Dan's house. Pat used to bring me. My dad was so proud when Dan picked me up in his van from our house in the Derrys. We travelled to many counties around Ireland, Cork, Connemara, and I think the Irish Club in Dublin. I'd be sitting in the front row seat, in the middle between Dan and Des Coughlin, Michael Lynham, Joe Bryan and Peter Kilroe. I can't remember who else was in the back, but they always looked after me. I remember when we got to where the band was playing, some ladies would have tea ready for us. The usual, ham and tomato sandwiches, cake and butter rolled up in little balls. A great spread, and I would sit down with all the men. I sang the old-time waltzes, as I remember the boys from the County Mayo, 40 Shades of Green, the Boston Burglar, and I can't remember what else. I loved to get down off the stage and dance the Siege of Ennis. Someone would always ask me out. I remember one night, on the way home, I think it was from Cork, Dan nearly went off the road, down an embankment. I tell you that surely woke us all up, but we were all okay, thank God. As far as I remember, I used to get 30 shillings for the night. and I was happy to give most of it to my dad the next morning. It was always a welcome. It gave me the bug for singing, and I have enjoyed getting up at various functions over the years. I have even wrote a few songs and had some recorded. I really wish I was there to reminisce with you all, but I hope you will have a wonderful night, and I will be with you in spirit.
Thanks, Valerie. Thank you. Now, we have the long-suffering, waiting Sean Ryan. He's after waiting all night, and he's going to play a couple of tunes. And you know something even better than that? He's going to allow me to accompany him. Is that all right, Sean? Yeah. Okay.
Thanks a million, and I am honoured to be asked to play here tonight, and thanks to John and Ursula for that. I wouldn't have known Dan well. I would have met him at Flas, probably through Sean Ryan and that, but I'm going to play a tune now. I got it from another fiddle player. I must ask Ursula about it. His name was Eugene McGrath from Garrisbillan down in Limerick. Now, he would have known Sean Ryan very well, and he was in the same running, so they may have known each other too, but I don't know. I meant to ask Ursula early on. But anyway, it's a tune. It's an air called The Lament for Staker Wallace. And it was a version that Eugene played down there. I'll try a couple of jigs this time. The first one is a version of the frost is all over, in fact. Now, I can't remember, I have it so long, I don't know where I got it, but it's a slightly bit different to what you hear normally. But after that, then, it's another version of a tune called The Irish Washerwoman. Now, I got that up in Knock, in the County Mayo, from a flute player there called Michael Conboy, an amazing flute player. But he got this from an old accordion player that gave all the early parts of the 1900s in America. I said accordion, he was a melodeon player. And he came back and settled back then in Knock, and Michael got this from him. So it's a melodeon style of the tune, the Irish Washroom.
I'll always be able to say that I played a tune with Sean Ryan now. My claim to fame. Okay, right. There's a little story that Dan used to tell. So I think Owen has it on tape there. So maybe let her roll there. And this is just coming on to the end of our show now. So we'll be doing the presentation after this.
Oh yeah, sure. Anything that comes to mind.
Before we got our Rowan band, one of our lads, Mick Boland, it seemed there in the snap, I was telling the driver, now Johnny, we want to try and rush it, we have to be there at such a time, and we're tight for time. And we were passing through a town, prior to the town we were going to. We were passing through it, and Mike said, shout it out to Johnny in front of the driver. Johnny, pull into the left. There's a woman with a problem here wants to get out. That he had to pass by the, she had to pass by. We're going there slowly.
Not slowly.
But I remember going on another occasion, I remember going to Overbuy, it's down near Newmarket, and we go through Limerick, pass through Limerick, here, the press on the rail, and my foot went in the ground. said to the lads, I'll leave you in Brosnan. Brosnan is the portion of Borbuy, that's on the border of Cork.
Okay, that's right.
And I'll let you go ahead, and I'll be in a panic. I'll try and have a look at this and see what's, and I'm not going to get ice cream with me.
My goodness.
But the breaks. But I let them, that as we pass from Limerick on towards Borbuy, here at the top of an incline, I knocked by the handbrake and it was over. And here, what was on the slope of the hill, and it was a steep slope, only a few.
Yeah.
And I looking for both sides of the road to try where to put in, or to kill somebody walking after the hearse.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was not a hit. Then the next thing, a car pulled out from the curb, and there was fairly high curbs, I remember it well. But I jammed her into the side of the curb, and she was able to stop. Then because the wheels were jammed against the side of the curb along of the footpath, on the slope of the hill. A small little village on the slope of the hill. I'm not able to name the village. Hubcap started bowling off around the road, and there was nothing on the far side of only people looking what was after happened there. But I got down, and after all that trouble, I got ahead on to Brosnan or Borbuy, and I had to find out what was wrong with the brakes. I had no fluid for the brake fluid had pumped out onto the road. From experience anyway, I went up to the shop and got a lemonade, a bottle of lemonade. I put it into the master cylinder and I pumped the brakes, and water would do no harm. It was left in brake fluid for a considerable length of time. Whereas oil will. Right. You can't put fluid to get nailed into brake fluid or into hydraulic system in a car. With water doesn't affect it. You can pump it out when you're done the next day, pump it up and it's all right. But I bent the pipe where it was burst with the vice grip,
Yes.
and stopped it.
Right.
And I had the brakes with the lemonade and got home.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyway, you did your...
I thought there was different names to that story. Okay, there was one item that I left out. That we had pupils of Dan's here, and I actually forgot one of the pupils that meant to be here, but he had to have an operation on his hand yesterday. That's Dave Sheridan. So Ursula's going to read out something that he sent. Okay. Well done, Ursula.
This is from David Sheridan, and he says, I am so sorry that I cannot be there tonight to join in the celebration of Dan's life and legacy. I think of him often as I play and regularly tell my fellow musicians about the excellent teaching he gave me all those years ago. I still play many of the tunes he gave me. He had a way of finding beautiful tunes that still and will endure. He had great patience. I can vividly recall nights in the rooms in Moat when I was very young, as he encouraged and supported sometimes very reluctant fiddlers. He gave us all in Tubber a great grounding with our Cleary band, and we formed friendships live to this day. Thank you to the Cleary family for keeping his memory alive. I hope you all have a wonderful night full of music and stories about one of Offaly's true heroes. It's Dave Sheridan.
Now we come to the stage of the night when we're going to call on Derry again to well, we're going to make a little presentation, I believe. Actually, this is the part where we induct Dan into the actual Hall of Fame. Okay. We'll leave it to you, over to you, Derry.
Okay. Do you want to do the presentation? Yeah, can we do it now?
I'll do it now, yeah. I thought he had a whole lot of things to say. Right. If any members of the Cleary family that are here should come up here now, I think. Okay? Come on, Anna.
Yeah, we'd like if the family, the president would come up. By the way, we don't do trophies, etc., that gather dust. We have always presented memorabilia, souvenirs, that people can proudly display as a Hall of Fame souvenir. Now, when people come into their homes, they can read the souvenir of what the night and the event and the tribute is all about. So tonight, that is what I will be doing, presenting a souvenir. It's a synopsis, short synopsis, and for people that would be interested in finding out more, apart from the website, Facebook is a great tool for promoting Dan Cleary, and I would say it's wonderful that Ursula has launched a Facebook page, a heritage page in tribute to Dan Cleary. My hope from far away Cork would be that Ursula will get support from the people of Offaly and around the Midlands that Dan supported for many, many years and decades. And that I would hope that in my lifetime, whatever will be, I'd like to think that in time to come, given due course, that I'd like to come back to Offaly and see a Dan Cleary Heritage Visitor Centre. I'd be delighted to see that. I think when you look at my late wife and I, we were travelling several years ago, and we were going up to the west of Ireland, and we were passing through a tiny village, and we came across this village called Gortine. I stopped the car, and I saw this magnificent building. And I went in and I introduced the Hall of Fame, and this lady who was manager, she invited me in. And this was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and we were still there at 7 o'clock at night. They had technology and everything else, and actually on there is a genius on that computer. And I think this could be done for Dan as well. And that's many years ago now that we were in Gortine. But you will find the Michael Coleman Visitor Centre in Gortine on your phones. It's a wonderful centre. If you ever want a day out, go to Gortine. It's a tremendous, tremendous day out altogether for people that are interested in Irish culture and music. They hold all sorts of events there. I actually got John Spillane from Cork and gig there. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful adventure. So now I just want to say, tonight, Ceol, kind greetings, and of course, tributes and commemorations. I'd like to thank that man over there, who did a wonderful job in running the whole show from start to finish. Very good job. Maureen Collison down there. Maureen, come up please. This lady was very instrumental because I think on my second or third visit up here, I was introduced to Maureen by Ursula. And I think she was very forthcoming with inspiration to Ursula. Is that correct? To get on with the project. And I think you had a big part to play in this commemoration tonight. Maureen, I think you had a huge part to play in it. So thank you, Maureen. Thank you very much. And of course then, that man over there, complimented him a number of times. Come over here, Ron, please. Now, is there anybody else you want to bring up here for the presentation? Yeah, please. Thank you, Margaret. Now, this is being presented to Ursula, and it's a heritage souvenir. And I don't have all the copies, but I can have all the copies. I have 2 other copies there in the bag over there. But if anybody wants to have a copy of the heritage souvenir of Dan Cleary, you can get it through Ursula. So now, we're gathered here. Ursula, the camera's on us now. Of course, someone mentioned tonight Maureen. And of course, while Dan was away entertaining people, Maureen, she was the mother of 12 children. Big achievement. I know one of the children died at 9 months old. But down at the bottom here, I have put a montage of the 11 children. And there's various images there. And look, Dan and Maureen side by side. I think that's the way it should be, because she played a huge part in all the decades of Dan's life. So I'm not going to waffle anymore. I'm just going to say on behalf of the Hall of Fame Ireland, on behalf of this man here, I'm going to say this is for the entire Cleary family to you. I'm going to meet them all. Can we get your mic, please? Thank you, God bless.
So on behalf of the Cleary family, we'd like to thank the Hall of Fame for this beautiful presentation, and particularly for Derry, all his help. We wouldn't be here if Derry hadn't received the message and Dan's story. So we're really indebted to Derry and everybody that's here, Owen and Maureen and Sister Anne and all our family. Just thank you. And we just want to thank all the people that came tonight, relatives, friends, neighbours. You know who you are, so even members of the Ballinamere band plus their families. I hope I haven't left anyone out. If I have, it's an oversight, and all the students as well. Thank you to everyone that made this special tonight from the Cleary family. Thank you.
So we wanted to finish up the night playing Trip to Dora, and if there's other tunes that you like, we wanted to play them as well. We'll have a blast of reels, and we'll finish up then with A Nation once again. Thanks very much to everybody. It was a great night, and thank you all very much. There's one person though that hasn't been thanked here and responsible for all this. It never happened if it wasn't for Derry. Derry, stand up there and take a walk. Derry, come on. Out there and take a walk. Give Derry a big round of applause there. Okay. And thanks to everybody, and thanks to everyone for coming. I think it was a great honour for, yeah. And, I'm delighted to have been part of this. Okay, thank you. Good night now. You walk.